Step back with us into the cool shade of Minnesota forests and wetlands in search of one of the state's most beloved wildflowers, a flower so enchanting that it inspired legends, became Minnesota's state flower, and remains protected by law. Today, we're talking about lady slippers.
Every gardener knows the feeling. You walk out into the garden with your morning coffee, expecting to admire your plants, and instead discover that something has turned your prized hosta into Swiss cheese overnight. Was it a beetle, a caterpillar, a slug, or are there tiny garden criminals holding secret midnight meetings in your flower beds? Today, we're talking about pest and bug management and how to manage pests naturally without accidentally harming the beneficial insects that are helping your garden.
Hello and welcome to the Petal Plot Pod, a seasonal plant stories and garden tips podcast. We're your hosts. I'm Aneesa.
And I'm Eric.
Lady slippers belong to the orchid genus Cypripedium. Their unusual pouch-shaped flower gives them their common name. Some say the pouch resembles a dainty slipper or moccasin. These remarkable orchids appear almost magical when you encounter them in the wild. One moment you're walking through a tamarack bog, and the next, there it is, a delicate flower shaped like a tiny slipper glowing amongst the mosses and ferns. For many people, spotting a lady slipper feels less like finding a flower and more like discovering a secret. Minnesota is home to several native species of lady slippers, making the state one of the best places in North America to find these terrestrial orchids. The most famous is the showy lady slipper, also called the pink and white lady slipper. With brilliant white petals and a bright pink pouch, it's one of the most striking flowers in North America. In 1902, it officially was adopted as Minnesota's state flower. They are astonishingly patient plants, sometimes taking 4 to 16 years before producing their first bloom, and individual plants may live for 50 years or more. The greater yellow lady slipper is larger than its yellow relatives and bears a golden pouch surrounded by twisted petals. It can be found in rich woods, swamps, and bogs throughout much of the state. The small lady slipper is more delicate, often growing in conifer swamps, fens, and boreal forests. Its bright yellow pouch seems to glow against the dark greens of the northern woods. Perhaps the strangest is the ram's head lady slipper. This threatened species has a flower unlike any other orchid in the state. Its pouch extends forward into a curious snout-like shape, giving it the appearance of a ram's head. Finding one in bloom is considered a special event among wildflower enthusiasts. So, Eric, you have lady slippers in your garden, right?
I do. I have the showy lady slipper. I have one, and I've had it for I put it in the ground maybe like 3-4 years ago. Last year was the first year it actually flowered for me, so I was very patient with it because it would like push up one stalk, and then last year I got a flower.
Ugh,
This year I got all
glorious.
excited because I got 2 stalks now, but
Yay!
only one flower.
Okay. Progress. So,
Right.
how did you acquire your lady slippers?
I purchased mine actually through a business online that's based here in northern Minnesota, and they sell all the varieties of lady slippers. It was actually really cool. But it's also interesting because it takes a while for them to actually be large enough to like plant and have something. So I remember when it came, it was literally maybe the size of a quarter. It looked like
Really?
nothing. It's true. 'Cause actually, when I did get the one I actually had gotten 3 different kinds, and only the one survived.
Oh, really?
So, I mean, also probably a testament to like how well they transplant anyways. I mean, and this was like through a nursery business that's like, does them in a way that they hopefully should. But I do remember there being like very specific things that they're like, do this, plant this deep, all the things like
Mhm.
as your best success metrics. But like,
Mm.
only one really like took off and did anything. So,
It'd be interesting to see the germination process there in their
oh,
laboratories
yeah.
or whatever.
Yeah. And I do think it's like a lab. Like I feel like it's not like nursery type,
Mhm.
because to your point of its relationship with a mycelium, I think I remember there being something a little more like grown in a tube type situation or something.
Mhm. Wow,
Yeah.
that's so cool. Yeah, so it sounds like you found an awesome, reputable buyer to purchase them from.
For sure. Yeah. Yes. And one that, produces them themselves. They're not going out in the wild and stealing them, if you will. But yeah,
Yes, exactly. Because we definitely want to emphasize today that you should not dig up lady slippers from the wilds. So let's
correct.
get
Yep.
into why these flowers are worth protecting. By the early 1900s, lady slippers had become so popular among European colonizers that people dug them up from the wild and gathered armfuls for bouquets. Showy lady slippers were especially prized for decorating rural church altars during the summer months. Unfortunately, their popularity led to declining populations. Minnesota responded by protecting the flower, and since 1925, it has been illegal to pick, uproot, or unearth the state's famous orchid. And that protection exists for good reason. Lady slippers depend on complex relationships with soil fungi. Their dust-like seeds contain almost no stored nutrients and cannot germinate without the help of specific underground fungi. We went further into this in our episode on the biggest and smallest seeds in the world, as orchids are the smallest seeds in the world. A single lady slipper orchid seed pod typically contains 10,000 to 20,000 microscopic seeds, which means a mature multi-stemmed plant can produce up to 500,000 seeds annually. The seeds are super small, like the size of dust, and can easily blow around in the wind and travel quite far. But unlike regular plant seeds, orchids lack a built-in food supply, the endosperm, to fuel germination. And because they lack these nutrients, the seeds are completely dependent on a symbiotic relationship with specific soil fungi or mycorrhiza, specifically from the rhizotonia complex, to survive and grow. Since finding the exact fungus in the wild is very rare, the plant overcompensates by releasing tens of thousands of seeds to ensure at least a few survive. This is why transplanted wild lady slippers usually die, even when moved with the best of intentions. So, best to just admire them where they grow. Lady slipper orchids have inhabited North America for millions of years, with the wider orchid family tracing its origins in the Northern Hemisphere back over 85 million years. One of the most enduring stories associated with lady slippers around here comes from Ojibwe traditions, the legend of the moccasin flower. In Ojibwe, the word for lady slippers is moccasin wabigwan, which means moccasin flower. Story goes that one winter, there was a village visited by a terrible sickness, and many people died, including the village healer. To save the community, a young girl made a dangerous journey to run through the snow to find medicine for the sick. She succeeded, but on the way lost her moccasins, leaving a trail of bloody footprints in the snow. And when spring arrived, moccasin flowers grew where the droplets of blood had landed, forever reminding people of her courage, sacrifice, and compassion. The story varies among communities and storytellers, but the themes remain the same: bravery, healing, and a devotion to one's people. Native Americans from areas all over North America have used lady slippers to bring down fevers, cure headaches, and ease menstrual cramps and labor pains. Drinking tinctures of lady slipper roots is a remedy for insomnia, anxiety, or general emotional tension. The roots are gathered in fall or early spring, dried out, and ground into a powder. And again, I'm only saying this for educational and entertainment reasons. I am in no way encouraging anyone to do this in real life. The orchid's calming powers come from a chemical also called cypripidine, a bitter cinnamon-colored powder from the roots. And despite its attractive source, the medicine itself is said to smell pretty awful, which makes me think of valerian, which has a lovely flower scent, and the roots provide powerful sleep medicine, but they smell unbearable. Oh,
Yeah.
and Eric, there's a famous flower, terrible smelling flower that's blooming right now. Do you know what I'm talking about? Or maybe it's done blooming already.
Oh, are you talking about the one at like Como?
Yes, yes. The corpse flower.
Like I had a moment and like I picture it in my head. I'm like, it's
Yeah,
this
same. I was
spike
like,
of a flower.
the corpse flower.
Yes, the corpse flower. Yes.
Affectionately named Horace, Como has two corpse flowers. So Horace is currently blooming and Frederick is not.
I love that they have names.
I know, me too. So, where can we see lady slippers right now? Mid June and early July are prime times to see the showy lady slipper in bloom, which means they are blooming right now. Eric, have you ever specifically seen a showy lady slipper in the wild?
No, not at all.
Right?
Yeah.
Like, what a little treasure to find.
I know. I mean, I thought it was a treasure just to have the one I have in my own garden.
Mhm,
But
yes.
like I can only imagine when you actually find one that's like been doing its thing out in nature and probably has a few buddies with it, not just like the sad single flower that I have. But
It's like it'd be like finding the Holy Grail, right? Like,
yeah,
angels would descend from the heavens and inquire.
yes, for sure.
Yeah, I have only one time, and that was in a state park in southeastern Minnesota, but that was
Hmm.
a really fun treat.
Yeah. Which state park is that? This is my
Uh,
homeland.
well, yeah, that's right, you're from down there. It was the Great Bluffs State Park on the
Yeah.
Mississippi. Yeah.
What? Okay, they were
Yeah.
growing all around me apparently when I was little. Or,
Yeah, lady slippers are currently blooming in our area at the Arboretum and at the Eloise Butler Garden, so you can go visit them there. Northern Minnesota also offers some of the best opportunities more towards the end of June. One of the most famous locations is the Lady Slipper Scenic Byway between Cass Lake and Black Duck, where thousands of showy lady slippers bloom along the wetlands and forest edges. Other sightings are often reported in places like Itasca State Park and protected bogs and wetlands throughout the state. And there's also a section of the Superior Hiking Trail near Finland that has a lady slipper lane, which is a boardwalk that goes through a bog where they are often found to be blooming. Wherever you encounter them, remember to stay on trails, avoid disturbing the habitat, and leave the flowers exactly the way you found them. Lady slippers are more than just orchids. They're symbols of Minnesota's wild places, reminders of ancient wetlands and forests, and living connections to stories passed down through generations. They teach patience, take years to bloom. They teach respect, thriving only when their habitat remains intact. And they remind us that some of the greatest treasures in nature cannot be owned or only admired. I guess, except for you, Eric, you own them. I'm just kidding.
legally, I legally own one. I
Legally
didn't.
owned lady slippers.
Yes.
So, next time you're wandering a northern forest and catch sight of a pink lady slipper glowing among the ferns, take a moment to appreciate the miracle before you.
One of the biggest challenges for gardeners isn't getting plants to grow, it's protecting them once they do. So, the good news is that most insect damage isn't the end of the world. In fact, a healthy garden can tolerate a surprising amount of nibbling. The key is learning the difference between cosmetic damage and a true pest problem. So, today we'll focus on the most common garden pest in Minnesota locally and how to identify them from the clues that they leave behind, how to attract beneficial insects, and how to make smart decisions about treatment when needed. Because, contrary to what the garden center pesticide aisle might suggest, the goal isn't to eliminate every bug. The goal is balance. So, first, I thought we'd talk a little bit about just reading the clues, right? So, when you see bug damage, it's immediate like, which one is this? Sometimes you don't see them. You don't know what happened. So, before treating any pest problem, you kind of need to identify the culprit, if at all possible. And so, a lot of gardeners see holes in leaves and immediately start looking for something to spray. And that's kind of like hearing a funny noise in your car and deciding that entire engine needs replacing, right? And so, the damage itself often tells the story. A few things you might see, like small round holes. And if we connect that, that could be something like beetles, usually the flea beetle. And it looks like they're doing miniature hole punches through the leaves. And they're common in a lot of like vegetables like eggplants, tomatoes, or peppers. And then you see things like a skeletonized leaf, if you will, wherein only the veins kind of remain, which if you've experienced that, you may think Japanese beetles. And then other leaf signs like ragged, chewed edges can be usually a caterpillar, earwigs, grasshoppers. Slime trails usually is the calling card of like slugs and snails. Distorted new growth is many times like an aphid, spider mite, or thrips. And if an entire plant is missing, you would know this, Aneesa, because we get this question a lot at the garden center. You may not have a bug problem at all. Think rabbits, deer, or groundhogs. So I think one of the best skills a gardener can develop is kind of identifying damage before identifying the insect. And so many pests hide during the day, but the clues they leave behind are usually easier to spot. So, Aneesa, how do you go about identifying like pests and issues in your garden? What is your process that you do in your head?
Yeah. Well, the biggest annual problem I have is usually with slugs in my kale. I guess I'm also assuming that
Ah,
it's just slugs, but I have seen them out there. I put sometimes we'll put boards down and then they'll collect underneath the board and then I'll like lift the board up and scrape them into the
yeah,
garbage. And then like with the lilies, those will get little holes and
yep,
I honestly need to get better at proactively pre-treating lilies because then by the time they have their holes and then like the next day, like this is so gross. They laid like the larva underneath the leaf
yeah.
and it's just like this little black, it is disgusting. And
It
then you have to like
looks,
go physically
yeah,
remove it.
yeah.
Ugh, so gross. Just
Yeah,
gotta put neem oil on it right away.
yeah, yeah, exactly. Yeah, agreed. I feel like I many times, yes, will spend time just identifying like what is it. But then there's also the difference between other like bacterial, viral, bacterial like things that would
Hmm.
also show up. And I know we're not going to talk about those today, but just like know, like I feel like for our listeners that there's like another realm of diseases and things you could talk about. But, when we talk about bugs and insect pest management, it's a lot more of like holes or the juices being sucked out of something and other slimy trails or stickiness being left behind kind of things. Yeah. So let's talk a little bit about our local, like most wanted but not wanted in our garden pest. So, some of those common offenders that we face. And so, I feel like the first one I'm gonna hit on here is Japanese beetles. Do you get Japanese beetles in your garden, Anissa?
Yep.
I can never forget the time I decided to make the turn into roses. And if you know me, like I did not like roses for the longest time, and then something happened and I put a rose in my garden. Now I have like 20. But
What happened?
I
What happened?
I don't know if it was like watching like an episode of Monty Don from New England. It made me be like, "Hey, I think I like roses now. I did it, and now I have them." So, but without like fail of realizing we have Japanese beetles here, which love roses, and so I instantly learned that first year of like the real damage that they can cause if you do nothing. And so Japanese beetles are really like the celebrity villains of summer. I feel like so they arrive in like late June and July and just seem determined to eat every flower that you've ever loved. So, roses, hibiscus, grapevines they love, crab apples, even leaves of that. And the metallic green bodies make them really easy to identify. And honestly, if they weren't destroying plants, we'd probably admire how pretty they are.
Mhm.
But yeah, I think the natural control is probably best used for some of those where hand picking them and putting them into a jar of soapy water because they actually give off a pheromone that signals other Japanese beetles to like come over for the buffet. Hence why we talk a little bit. There are traps you can get that give off that scent, it attracts them to the trap, which is great. But it also will attract every Japanese beetle to that trap to the area, which is not great. So there's some of those natural controls. I go around and handpick them and give them a little bubble bath. You can also do some things in the turf because the grubs grow in your turf. So you can do some other nematodes and things in there that would like affect the grub stage of them as well. I think the next one I think is very common are aphids. Have you worked with aphids a lot in your garden? And I
I've
should say
definitely
like worked with them as if you guys were working side by side against them in a battle to the death. Like what what happened?
I have seen aphids in my garden, but I guess I haven't thought of them as being destructive enough to try
Yeah.
hard to get rid of them.
Yeah, I've actually had that same experience. I know some people like it can be really bad. and they're soft-bodied insects, to explain what they are, and they gather in like little colonies, and they really will sit and like suck the juice out of your plant, and they kind of leave sticky leaves, curled foliages, and then you'll also notice like ants all of a sudden appear. And that's because ants actually farm aphids for honeydew, but they basically then eventually kind of like take out your plant then. But I haven't had a lot of issues with them, or just sometimes like strong water sprays is enough to just knock them off and take them out.
Hmm.
All right, you talked about slugs, so I have that next on my list. So, one thing I thought was interesting when thinking of these different bugs and how to manage them is like thinking also of like what's happened during the springtime or summer, like if we have really dry summers or really wet summers, because especially common during like wet springs and in our shady gardens, that slug population sometimes can like boom. You see them, they kind of have ragged holes they'll cut into hostas or other nice things they love, missing seedlings even altogether. And they usually leave these like slime trails. And usually you can sometimes find them maybe under the leaf or down in the base, like where your mulch is. How do you control your slugs, Anissa? Do you do anything to try to like manage
Yeah,
them?
I
Yeah.
have tried all of the things over the years. So
Yeah.
I have
Okay.
because like I said, they often show up in my kale. I usually have like 18 kale plants, and they love to live there. And so I have tried like putting little teacups of beer, like sort of pushed into the earth, so they're attracted to that. They go into the beer and then they drown. But
Yeah.
that is not an easy thing to constantly maintain. So I got sick of doing that. I've
Yeah.
tried diatomaceous earth so that they can crawl around and their bodies will get all cut up. And again, it's something you do have to sort of reapply as it rains and as the earth moves and stuff like
Yes.
that. Boards, trying to collect them physically and mechanically remove them. But now I just end up putting Sluggo down because I get like a big thing of it and try to just like treat it organically, but it's still a chemical. So like the
Yeah.
risk with that I've found is that if I'm too careless when I'm sprinkling it, if some of those granules get into the leaf of the kale, it will like distort the kale. So then the kale will
Yeah.
grow super weird. So even though it's technically
Yeah.
organic, it's still a chemical and it will still affect the
Yep.
plant. So I do have to like be really careful that I'm just doing it on the base and just doing it
Yeah.
on the ground or my mulch. But this year I actually got beneficial nematoids, and so I put a bunch of beneficial nematoids into my vegetable garden. I've done this
Yeah.
before in my broader gardens to get rid of grubs, but I've never
Yeah.
done it in my vegetable garden. And this last year, I was like, why haven't I tried to get rid of the slugs with nematoids? So
Yeah.
this year, it's grub on grub warfare, and I hope the nematoids come out the victors. We'll see.
Yep. Yeah, and I feel like if you don't have a large infestation and you see slugs, I feel like just like hand picking them and squishing them, or get a
Ew.
paper towel, or get a paper towel and squish them and throw them in the garbage, whatever you need to do, right?
I will never
Um,
do that.
oh, I would. They'd be like, "See ya." Uh, very executional style. I know. Um, yeah, a few other things like spider mites, which is also a very common thing, and they're really common now more like during hot, dry weather. Many people see like spider mites on like their boxwood or some other like shrubby plants too, but they leave kind of like tiny yellow speckles, which kind of make it look like the leaf has kind of been discolored, if you will. Usually you find fine webbing, which is a very key thing. Think spiders, webbing. Natural control is one to try to increase humidity, actually. Strong water sprays can make a difference, or insecticidal soap. And again, I'm kind of talking about natural controls on a lot of these rather than going straight for the pesticides or insecticides that I know are out there too. The big thing is like the best pest control really happens before pests arrive. And so it's really about like keeping plants healthy in the first place, right? So stress plants attract problems many times. And so like there's things like just avoiding overwatering and underwatering, excessive fertilizer. And so I think the other thing to think of is just like plant diversity. Nature loves diversity and pests love like monocultures. So 20 hostas planted together are basically like an all you can eat buffet, but mixing shrubs, perennials, annuals, and natives really help reduce pest pressure and like also invite a lot of those like beneficial pests to kind of balance the ecosystem. I feel like walking your garden and doing garden walks is important. It's like kind of the best pest control is like notice it before it's even a problem. That you pay attention to your plants, you look at things, maybe you're picking flowers. So in doing so, you notice other things. And then I feel like just keeping the garden clean. It is important to remove like diseased foliages, or sometimes if you have fruit trees, fallen fruit, or severely infested plant material, like get that out of your garden. Don't put it into your compost pile as well. So for good bugs, it's really like a easy way to kind of get like free work in your garden, like taking care of these issues. I thought I'd mention just a few of those beneficials, and then also like the plants to plant that naturally attract them. So first off, like your lady beetles, or do you call them lady beetles or ladybugs, Anissa?
Oh, um, well, there's the ladybugs. Do you
Yeah.
mean like the red lily beetles?
No. Yeah. I
No.
mean, I
I
see some people call them lady
okay.
beetles and some
Oh,
people call them ladybugs.
for sure in ladybug camp.
Yeah.
I didn't even know what you meant at first when you said
Oh,
lady
funny.
beetle.
Yeah, I mean, just because of terminology, right? Yeah. So anyways, ladybugs or lady beetles, really love things like yarrow, dill, fennel, coreopsis. And one ladybug can really eat like dozens of aphids like every day. So like they're amazing to have. You can even get like packages like just online and they show up at your door in 3 days and it's just like crawling with like 10,000 ladybugs to just release, which is fun. Um,
Mhm.
there's lacewings, and their larvae are named aphid lions because they're a pretty intimidating thing to aphids to eat up. But cosmos, dill again, sweet alyssum naturally bring lacewings in. You have hoverflies, which are attracted to sweet alyssum again, parsley, cilantro, and the larvae are another thing that eat aphids. And then you have like things like parasitic wasps, which love goldenrod, native asters, mountain mint, and dill. And they're tiny, harmless to humans, but highly effective against like pest insects. I know you can get like praying mantis out there as well. Thinking of some of the plants that might naturally attract them. I know for me, I have like plenty of like cilantro, dill, parsley, a lot of those things I was naming. I think that's probably why I have a good balance because I have food for those beneficial insects to eat as well. So do you grow some plants and things like that specifically for beneficials?
I am inspired by thinking about it. I do
Yeah,
plant a lot of herbs and I plant a lot of the plants that you had mentioned, like yarrow and herbs and stuff like that. I didn't plant them for bugs, but I'm glad that they're working for the bugs.
exactly, right? Yeah. Yeah, I am too. A lot of them I think look really pretty in the garden if you plant them right too. So it doesn't have to be something that
Absolutely.
you're throwing in your garden thinking like, well, I have to have this to do this. I think you can actually plan it well in a design to add some nice like lacy texture from some of those things like dill and cilantro and everything and eat it too. So the last bit I was going to say is just like resources for identifying pests. I think your garden center is a great place to go if you just don't know what you're looking at or what the problem is. Just make sure you bring in good samples in a bag and then take those samples back home with you. No one wants them at the garden center. Um, but you can also like use apps today. Like I know iNaturalist is a great app for like insect identification. You can also go to like websites like the U of M extension service or find books as well that can kind of help you identify things. When you start to know what the signs are, it becomes a lot easier. We did talk a lot about like great ways to use some natural things to like take care of infestations. But I think like it is important to talk a little bit about just like the pesticide ladder because the reality is I know like people might be like I just need them out, right? And you go buy the toughest thing out there. And the reality is that does like affect any bug, right? Many of them don't only affect one specific bug and that's it, let alone what it does remain in the soil. So think of like pest control kind of as a ladder, like start at the bottom and only climb higher when necessary. So like those low impact things we talked about, like hand picking, you can put row covers or other things that deter them from flying in, insecticidal soap, horticultural oils. These should like really be like your first line of defense. And then like moderate impact options, you get into like things like BT, Bacillus thuringiensis, which is excellent for like taking out caterpillars, but it's one of the most like targeted environmentally friendly controls available. But I think realize what it does to any caterpillar potentially. Even neem oil is helpful, but also when used correctly and at the right time of day. Then you kind of get into a lot of other bigger things like spinosad, um, uh, pyrethyrins. There's quite the list. And I'm not going to get into like specific brand names. You can find them all out there. But the fact is that many of them are really less selective and can have like a big impact on your beneficial insects as well. So it's like you put it out there and you've just like knocked back everything, which might not be great and might also just keep them vulnerable longer and year over year because you've taken out the beneficial insects as well.
Yeah, and I think it's so important to think about too, like if you're trying to plant for pollinators or if you have milkweed and
Yeah.
you're using some strong insect or even things that are natural like neem oil. Neem oil is super effective and it's pretty safe, but
Yeah.
you probably don't want to put it near your milkweeds, right?
Right.
You want to like only use it in places where it's not going to repel the bugs that you want or the insects and butterflies that you want to come in.
Exactly. So the reality is that every garden has pests. Even botanical gardens, professional landscapes, and award winning gardens deal with insects every season. Success isn't about eliminating every bug, it's about understanding which insects are causing problems, supporting the beneficial ones, and keeping your plants healthy enough to thrive despite a little nibbling. I think one of the biggest signs of healthy gardens isn't zero insects, it's balance. And so if you have bees, butterflies, lady beetles, or bugs, hoverflies, and yes, a few holes in your leaves, that's often a sign your garden ecosystem is doing exactly what it's supposed to do. So the next time you find damage in the garden, don't panic. Put on your detective hat. Gather the evidence, identify the culprit, and remember that gardening is often less about fighting nature and more about learning how to work with it. And if all else fails, blame the Japanese beetles first. That's a pretty good chance you're right. Hey, Aneesa, do we have a listener question for today?
Oh, yeah, we do. Let me see here. Okay. Mark writes in and asks, I put straw mulch down in my vegetable garden, and now there's a bunch of thick grass growing everywhere. How do I get rid of it without ruining my veggies? I also have this issue happening right now. Do you use
Yeah,
straw, Eric?
I I have used it in a few of my vegetable, and then I have like a strawberry patch that I usually like
Oh,
to put
yeah.
it down. Did not do it at all this year, so I'm just behind the ball. But yeah, so what are you doing in your garden?
Yeah. So that thick grass that's growing is straw. So usually when you get a bale of straw, there's a ton of seeds in it and they're just going to take root. So I usually wait until they're about 6 inches high and then which looks kind of crazy, but I have found that especially if you wait till right after it rains, so the ground is wet, you can grab it by like a fistful and gently tug it up. And it's like strong enough that you can tug the entire root system up with it. But the roots aren't so deep that
Mm,
they would break off and stay in there. So I just grab it by the fistful, gently tug it all up, and then I lay it down on top of the rest of the straw, and then it dies and it just becomes more mulch. And usually once that first round of seeds goes to seed and then you pull them up, you won't have that issue again. So it's usually just kind of a one and done situation. But yeah, you don't want to use something like where you're trying to rake through it. I have found that is a little disturbing. So just hand pulling, I've found works really good.
yeah. Yeah, I was gonna say, I think like just pulling up would probably be the best solution. Otherwise, the other thing is next time you put straw down, you can also get clean straw,
Mm,
which, is like,
sounds fancy.
yeah. It's been basically specially processed to be like weed free and dust free and used for like gardening or landscaping or even pet bedding. But it's filtered and packaged to avoid the seeds, dirt, and like chemical herbicides found in like standard farm hay or raw bales.
Mm-hmm.
Use what you got.
Mm-hmm. If you have a gardening question you'd like us to answer, please write to us at petalandplot@gmail.com. And if you enjoyed this episode, please share it with someone you know and click the follow button to hear our next episode.
As garden designers here at Petal and Plot, we also offer year-round in-person and virtual gardening consultations and custom garden designs as well. Want to see more of what we're up to? Please follow us on Instagram at Petal and Plot. That's PETALNPLOT.